Sometimes when we think of Shabbat, we're so busy worrying about the things that you don't do, that you're not allowed to do, and the things that you have to do, that we forget the spirit, we forget the whole purpose, the idea, the meaning behind Shabbat in the first place. So before I speak this morning, I just want to draw your attention to the meaning of Shabbat that seems to be given in the way Shabbat is presented in the 10 utterances as it was read this morning. Remember, Shabbat was already introduced a few chapters ago in the Torah. But here in the 10 utterances, it's being explained differently, instructed differently. Something is being highlighted in the way Shabbat is presented. Not only shall you not do any work, kol melacha ata, but also bincha, bitecha, avdecha, amatcha, your son, your daughter, your male slave, your female slave, your cattle, your stranger who is within your settlements. That means even someone who is not Jewish is expected, according to this version of Shabbat's presentation, not to work. For 6 days, all of us fit into some hierarchy. Somebody's working for us, and maybe we work for somebody else. Maybe it's our boss, maybe it's the government. All of us are in some hierarchy of life. There are some who are above you, some who are below. What is being emphasized in the way the Torah speaks about Shabbat in the 10 Commandments is that this is a day when the ideal of equality must be realized. You don't work for anybody else, and nobody works for you. Today, everyone works for God. The fundamental, underlying ideal of Shabbat is that every person was created of the same infinite value, equal to one another. Keep that in mind, because we're living in a world today where I'm not so sure people share that belief. What happened last Shabbat, you should all know this, in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburb of Colleyville, Texas, was nothing less than the worst nightmare that sometimes plays through the mind of every congregational rabbi, cantor, and their spouse from time to time. We envision this, certainly since Pittsburgh a few years ago. We've been told in training sessions, when we meet in rabbinic conferences, this is going to happen. You better be prepared. Even Rabbi Citron Walker himself, the rabbi who was taken hostage in this attack, said, I knew this was coming. I was prepared. I had already gone through training sessions that prepared me and gave me a bit of insight on how to handle myself in a situation like this. We need to talk about what happened in Colleyville. We have to understand its lessons. We have to chart a course going forward. But the problem is many people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to understand it. The story was in the headlines for a few days, and sadly, for the most part, by now, it has gone away. 1 week ago, a rabbi like me was taken hostage with congregants like you in a synagogue like ours. If that's not personal, I don't know what is personal. Check your pulse and make sure you're feeling that same sense of outrage that you felt when you first heard about this last week. But in this time that has elapsed, something strange is going on. As I said, I heard about this for a couple of days in the media, but then there's been air silence. In the entirety of the week, I have not received a single message of support from any religious leader of any denomination, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, whatever. Not a single message. In the same week, I haven't received a single message of support or solidarity from a political leader. Municipal, provincial, federal, nothing. Or any civic leader, or any bureaucrat. Nobody's talking about this. Maybe nobody gets it. I thought maybe it was me. Maybe they don't like me. Wouldn't be the first time someone said, I don't like you, but I contacted another rabbi. But in a meeting a few days ago of the Toronto Board of Rabbis, it was amazing. The meeting was just on Wednesday. We all went around the table, and everybody around the table expressed shock and disappointment that none of our interfaith partners or political partners had reached out to any of us to express a sense of sympathy, solidarity, concern. Zero. At least it wasn't personal. One rabbi cynically said, maybe they only call us when we get killed. It was a comment that resonated with everybody. It resonated because I think all of us, at least at that Toronto Board of Rabbis meeting, understand how anti-Semitism manifests. Yes, it is the conspiracy theory fed to people like Malik Faisal Akram, Yimach Shemo, who believed that Jews control the world and yield the strings of power. That's called demonization. Yes, it's evident in the denial of our national right to self-determination, the denial of our history, the denial of our identities. That's called delegitimization. But anti-Semitism is also evident in the third D, double standards. Jews, individually and nationally, being judged by different standards than everybody else. Why is nobody talking about Colleyville? Because today we don't believe in what I was just teaching about the equality of all people that is inherent in the observance of Shabbat. Today we believe some victims matter more than others. And we believe some attackers matter more than others. When a neo-Nazi killed 11 people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in October 2018, everyone understood the nature of the attack, its perniciousness, and all people of good will condemned it swiftly. There was never a question about whether the attack was motivated by anti-Semitism. Of course it was. The attacker went specifically to a synagogue on a Saturday morning to kill Jewish people. And so in response to this tragedy, we had many partners, all standing with us in solidarity. The killer was a neo-Nazi. Neo-Nazism is an enemy to all of us, to our way of life, to our values. But those very questions, whether this attack was a manifestation of anti-Semitism or not, and whether we ought to stand in solidarity with the Jewish people, whether they even deserve our solidarity, those questions were raised in the past week with regards to the Colleyville disaster. And that has resulted, and let me tell you, around that table at the Toronto Board of Rabbis meetings, I will tell you, everybody felt alone. For me and for all of us in the Jewish community, we are living in a different time. We have become obsessed with notions of victimhood and oppression, notions that have become intertwined with political loyalties and ideological purities. And we are now living in a world where some people get more condemnation than others when they do the same awful thing, and some people get more empathy than others when they are victimized by the same awful thing. And I don't have to tell you where Jews fall on the list. Dara Horn put it bluntly when she titled her new book, People Love Dead Jews. Akram was a British national of Pakistani descent who was a member of an organization called Tablighi Jamaat. Tablighi Jamaat is an extremist Islamic movement that believes that Muslims should travel the world converting non-believers to the one true faith. Tablighi Jamaat is so radical that it is banned in Saudi Arabia. Did you hear that? Saudi Arabia bans them, but not the UK. For 25 years, Akram has been on the radar of MI5, that's British intelligence, and has a rap sheet that is several pages long. He served 3 stints in prison. He once assaulted a British court official when that official reprimanded him for raving about 9/11 and saying that he wished he had been one of the attackers. He is a known participant in rallies for Guantanamo Bay terrorist detainees, and of course, a common presence at pro-Palestine demonstrations. He was even reported to police a year ago by a local councillor after threatening explicitly to kill and bomb Jews. This man should have been the first name on the international terror watch list, but somehow this menace to society was allowed to board a plane from the UK and enter the United States and buy a weapon there. That is outrageous. That is outrageous. I have a friend who had a minor criminal conviction when he was a teenager, and he knows that if he tries to enter the United States, he will be turned around without a moment's hesitation. But Akram was welcomed with open arms into the United States. I am very glad to hear that a full investigation is being conducted to understand how that was allowed to happen. And Canada should take this opportunity to review its own entry protocols, though I doubt they will. We're too obsessed with checking people's shoes at the airport and not obsessed enough with checking into their backgrounds. Even back in the UK, Akram became fixated with the release of Afia Siddiqui, who is commonly known as Lady Al-Qaeda. Siddiqui is a convicted terrorist currently serving in a Texas jail for opening fire on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. She is also a virulent anti-Semite. During her trial, she fired her entire legal defense team because they were Jewish. She also wanted the jury DNA tested to make sure that nobody had Zionist, quote, Zionist or Israeli backgrounds. On December 29th, Akram traveled to the U.S., easily bought a gun, entered Beth Israel's synagogue in Colleyville, took 4 people hostage, demanded that Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker arrange for Siddiqui's release and call a more important rabbi if he couldn't do it himself. The rest of the 11-hour standoff is well known. The FBI's hostage rescue team was heroic. Rabbi Citron Walker was tremendously heroic. It is nothing less than a miracle that none of these hostages were harmed in the confrontation. Nothing less than a miracle. Now, every Jew with just a basic understanding of the realities of Jewish life, who was watching these events unfold last week, could connect the dots very, very easily. Did anyone here have any doubt that anti-Semitism was a motive in this hostage-taking? I don't think anyone thought otherwise in the Jewish community. As I said, many of us expected this to happen at some point. Anti-Semitism has been on the rise in this country, on the rise in the United States and around the world for many years, and our synagogues are not fortresses. They are easily identifiable, purposefully welcoming, and rabbis like me are naive, too trusting. And live streaming, while it's wonderful, has also made us more vulnerable. We don't know who's watching right now. And it was only a matter of time before an attack like this would occur, and when it did, it was obvious to all of us that it was anti-Semitism, black and white, clear as day, and we expected that good people and good neighbors would surely stand with us in solidarity. Now, some did, and I don't want to minimize that, including some Muslim organizations. We should not forget those who expressed their support and their friendship. But too many people did not, and too many people still have not. Soon after the situation ended, Matthew DeSarno, the special agent in charge of the FBI Dallas field office, said this: "We do believe from our engagement with this subject that he was singularly focused on one issue, and it was not specifically related to the Jewish community." What? The Associated Press, in their coverage, put quotes around the word hostages, as if to say, sort of hostages. What? And in its coverage, said absolutely nothing about the fact that Afia Siddiqui was a virulent anti-Semite. Nothing. What? The lead CBS reporter in Dallas said, I quote, "It's not clear why Akram chose the synagogue." Even President Biden said, "I don't think there is sufficient information to know why he targeted the synagogue and why he insisted on the release of someone who's been in prison for over 10 years, why he was using anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli comments." These are actual, unironic statements made by the media, law enforcement, and the President of the United States. By now, thankfully, have all been retracted. But I'm happy they were made. I'm happy this came out, because it helps us understand why attacks like these continue to happen. When intelligent, thoughtful, trained professionals and leaders can't recognize anti-Semitism when it is staring at them right in front of their faces. No wonder this hatred continues to manifest. No wonder it continues to spread. And it just adds insult to injury when it comes to this terrible tragedy. What happened was awful, but the world's reaction was worse. It should not be an act of courage to call Colleyville what it was. Make no mistake about what it was. It was an act of anti-Semitic terrorism committed by one anti-Semitic Islamic terrorist for the sake of another anti-Semitic Islamic terrorist. Period. It was fueled by anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that are widespread in Muslim circles and often not taken seriously by police and law enforcement. This fact is obvious to Duke University professor Abdullah Antipli, who is a founder of the Muslim Leadership Initiative. He said that the Colleyville nightmare forces his community to have morally required tough conversations. He has demanded his fellow Muslims confront their own increasing anti-Semitism. He tweeted in caps, "Houston, we have a problem." Without ands and buts, without any further denial, dismissal, and or trivializing of the issues, we need to honestly discuss the increasing anti-Semitism within various Muslim communities. I'm glad that he said it, because if I said it, I would be labeled an Islamophobe and immediately canceled. In today's society, some victims matter more than others. Some attackers matter more than others. Our levels of sympathy and solidarity are tied to skin colors, religions, and socioeconomic classes, and there just ain't much sympathy and solidarity available for the Jews. If we believe that Canada is a place that ought to value and defend equality, that ought to value and defend freedom, we should care. We can't just allow this reality to overwhelm us. We can't do it as Canadians or as Jews. Today marks 1 week that a rabbi was taken hostage serving his congregation at Shabbat services. Too few of us seem to care. We all have a role to play to bring more love and more understanding to the world we live in, if we have any hope of making those 10 commandments and the values that support them, that underlie them, and the values of the prophets that we read of every week, equality, freedom, the importance and infinite value of every life. May bloodshed and violence cease. May baseless hatreds of all kinds vanish, and may all come to realize the holiness and equality of every person. Shabbat Shalom.